So these people here contributed to prepare this talk, so people at Mercator. But of course, the Copernicus Marine Service involves a lot more people across Europe, but not only, as I will explain in my talk. So I will explain what is the Copernicus Marine Service. It's about complementarity between models and observations, but it's also about European scientists working together. It's also R&D achievements, and finally I will show you a couple of use cases and what training material we have available on the website. So first, the Copernicus program is a large Earth observation program from the European Commission. So the idea is to give Europe capacities to observe the Earth, autonomous capacities. So there is a space part that we already talked about. And there are 6 services, the atmosphere, marine service, the land service, climate service, emergency and safety. So the marine service is implemented by Mercator Océan. Monitoring the marine environment is really about integrating together observations from the satellites, the in-situ observations, of course, which give the description at depth, and models. So we provide in this service information about the blue ocean, the physics, about the white ocean, sea ice, and the green ocean, everything, the biogeochemical variables, chlorophyll, oxygen, pH. We are interested in the past, in long time series of the ocean, in the present current oceanic conditions, but also we provide, as you know, forecast, 10-day forecasts. Oops, sorry. So of course, this is driven by a need to predict the evolution of weather and climate, to better manage the oceans and seas. And that's really a motivation for the European Commission to produce this service. So they want to have a world-leading marine environment monitoring service, but also which supports the blue growth and blue economy for a variety of applications: maritime safety, marine resources, healthy waters, information on coastal and marine hazard services, supporting climate services. So a lot of things, but the idea is to provide a free service that will really help developing the blue economy. So this is an infography that you can find on the internet on the blue growth. What is the blue growth or blue economy? So you have here the various economical applications, sectors or areas of interest where renewable energy, biotechnology, coastal and maritime tourism, aquaculture, mineral resources, and also other areas like shipbuilding, transports, fisheries, of course, offshore oil and gas. And all these economical sectors will generate jobs and value, economical value. And the idea is to have a free service and a central service to really help developing downstream activities that enter this economy, this blue economy. So this is another illustration of course, the areas of benefit, the marine resources, the weather and climate, seasonal forecasting, and maritime safety, coastal and marine environment, last but not least, of course. Now, all is based on a single web portal where you can have access to an online catalog where you can find all the products. They are disseminated under a common format, NetCDF, which is Inspire compliant, and it's an open and free service. You have to subscribe to give a few informations, but it is open and free. So on the catalog, you have many information on the products. You have documentation, online quality information. And okay. So on the portfolio, you have these numerical products, the NITCDF files, but not only, you also have an ocean state report. I will talk about a little bit later. Products quality information, as I said. The products cover the global ocean, but also there are specific products for the European seas. There are 7 regions, global, Arctic, Baltic, Northwest Shelves, NWS. EB is Iberian Biscay Island. This is this area, fine. And Med Sea and Black Sea. The products are observations, in situ, satellite, and ocean model products, marine, physical, and biogeochemical parameters, and, as I already said, long time series, real-time, and 10-day forecast. So this is an illustration of the fact that we have 14 different variables, including waves and biogeochemical parameters, but also winds. These variables are available under different type of products, model products, satellite products, and in situ. When available, they are, when it's possible, they are observed and modeled. So this is just an illustration of the global monitoring and forecasting system. I'm working at Mercator, so this is a Mercator contribution to the ocean forecast, the global forecast at 1/12 of a degree. So these are currents. It's just a nice illustration. Sea ice, this temperature, salinity, but we also have global ocean biogeochemical forecast. So this is a little bit repetitive. So this is just to say, of course, you know that in situ observations will help give a description at depth. The satellite observations only really cover the surface. But what we deliver in the Copernicus Marine Service is mainly level 3 and level 4. So as you heard about EUMETSAT, they are delivering level 1, level 2. We are delivering integrated satellite products. So I will give more details. And the ocean models cover from the surface to the bottom. We have long time series we call reanalysis, and real-time products and forecast. And these are 3D gridded products. Daily outputs hourly at the surface. So these products are not all produced by Mercator, as I said. They originate from a network of producers around Europe. Still working? Yeah. So they are state-of-the-art, and they are originating from 2 main categories of producer. We have thematic data assembly centers, really taking care of the observations, and monitoring and forecasting centers, which produce the model outputs and forecasts. So inside the Copernicus Marine Service, you have 4 thematic assembly centers, 1 for sea level, 1 for ocean color, 1 for sea surface temperature, sea ice and wind, and 1 for in situ observations. While the monitoring and forecasting centers, so running models, they are separated into regional forecasting centers. So you have the Arctic, the Baltic, the Atlantic, European Northwest Shelves, the Iberian Biscay Irish Seas, EBMFC, the Med Sea, the Black Sea, and the global ocean. So this is, again, to explain that the thematic assembly center really process the raw data. For the satellite tags, they are really producing level 3 and level 4. And for the in-situ tag, they are producing also reprocessed data sets, and providing data under a specific format. The monitoring and forecasting centers, they run 3 types of models: ocean circulation, ecosystem biogeochemistry, and wave models. Of course, the ocean circulation includes the sea ice model. The type of producer has an impact on the name of the products that you will find in a catalog. So sometimes it's very difficult to understand these long file names, but it's also for us to know where they come from. So when it's MFC, you will have the name of the MFC, Med or Glow or EB. When it's a TAC, you will have the name of the TAC, for instance, C-level or in situ. So this illustrates a little bit the fact that we integrate things into the Copernicus service. We start from the raw data, satellite ground segment products or raw in-situ products. And inside the tags, we add some algorithms, we add some integration onto grids, we add some interpolation, and we produce a higher level of integration. And then the MFCs even produce even more complex products with a higher level of integration, including more algorithms and models, but also more errors sometimes. So it's really complementary to have all kinds of products in the same place. So how is it organized? As I already said, there is a space component to the Copernicus service. So the Marine Service is really organized or led by Mercator Ocean. It's the entrusted entity to deliver the service. And we have strong interactions with the space agencies, but also with the European Environment Agency and with other Copernicus services, such as the Climate Service, because of course the ocean essential variables are also climate variables. So we have strong interactions. There is a scientific and technical advisory committee, which is composed of European scientists, but also international scientists. So we have a cross-cutting coordination central user service, which is at Mercator. And we have a series of thematic assembly centers and monitoring and forecasting centers that I already talked about, which are linked by contract to Mercator Ocean. And then we have an outreach and science part, which is really to perform the evolution of the service and the link with the users. So this is another series of contracts that we pass. So we have calls to have a scientific project and also specific user projects. So this is just to show you that many of your lecturers are involved in the Copernicus Marine Service. So you will recognize Pierre-Yves, as I already talked about, but also Fabrice Hernandez, who will talk tomorrow. Ananda is part of the Scientific and Technical Advisory Committee. Simon is leading one of the service evolution projects. Of course, at Mercator, we are working on a global MFC, but Chris is also involved in a global MFC. And here you have Joaquin, who is involved in an in-situ TAC. But I could have put other photos, I know, but some of you are involved. So this is to show you the biodiversity of the partners of CMEMS inside the TACs to start with. So these logos represent the various TACs. So the sea level, the ocean color, the sea ice, and sorry, this is sea ice, this was supposed to be ocean, this was supposed to be OSI, but whatever, and the in-situ TAC. So you can see that CLS leads the sea level TAC, the TNR from Italy leads the ocean color TAC, the Norwegian, the Met Norway leads the OSI TAC, and Ifremer leads the in-situ TAC, but they all have many partners. And you can see that, for instance, the in-situ TAC has many partners. It's a big coordination effort. These are the logos for the different MFCs with the various partners. So you can see that the NERSC is leading the Arctic MFC, the Danish Meteorological Institute leads the Baltic MFC, the Met Office leads the Northwest Shelf, Puerto Celestado leads EB, CMCC leads the Black Sea, no, leads the Med Sea, and is also involved in the Black Sea, but it's IOBAS who leads the Black Sea. And Mercator leads the global, and you can see that they also have a lot of partners. What about the users? So right now we have about 10,000 subscribers. Not all of these people are regular users, but we estimate the number of regular users of about around 6,000. And they are distributed around the world, but most users are European. And of course, they are working in the 4 areas of interest. So this service is user-driven. What does that mean? That we deliver the data products to the users, and they are also interacting with CMEMS via the web portal and the service desk, which is quite active and well, interactive. There's a central service desk and distributed service desk that are held by all the producers. And the interaction is really strong. And we ask for users' feedbacks, and we collect their requests and feedbacks via the service desk, but also via workshops and training sessions, and also via the user uptake projects I already talked about. So about this complementarity between observations and models, of course, you can imagine that in this big system of systems, we have tags for the observations, we have MFCs for the model. So of course, the MFCs use the data from the tags. So there is an interaction here. Then inside the MFCs, some MFCs use global boundary conditions. So there is an interaction in between MFCs. So all of this has to be animated in some way. But it's really interesting to be working in the same group. And finally, these observations are delivered together with the models. So all of this involves a strong technical coordination. So we've put in place a change management process and review processes. Right now, it's once a year. We have a big version, and all the producers gather, and we have a big review process. And so that's a lot of engineering and administrative work involved too. Another thing that has to be said about the complementarity between observations and models is that we are constantly, we really try to support the sustainability of the observation network. And we are leading a series of studies to show the impact of observations in the model analysis and forecast. So many studies take place into European projects, research projects such as EAIMS or Atlantos. But we also try to perform OSEs and OSSEs in the context of our operational duties. So this is an example showing the impact of retrieving half of the Argos in an ocean analysis. If you look at the errors, I think, so sorry, it's always a, so basically what the take-home message is when you take off half of the Argos, you really increase the error. And so this is really degrading significantly the analysis. So we really need the in situ network, and we even more, we need it to be sustainable, and we need it to be denser. So that has really great impact. And of course, the satellite data have a very important influence. This is another study showing the impact of retrieving one altimeter after the other. So here the take-home message is that when you assimilate 3 altimeters, this is a kind of relative error, and when you only assimilate 2 altimeters, but depending on the type of altimeters, you increase the error, and when you only assimilate 1, you have a relative increase of the error that is really important. So it's important for us to have sustainable altimetry coverage with several flying missions. And the impact, the most important impact takes place in the energetic areas, such as the boundary currents on the energetic currents of the Atlantic circumpolar region. So the STAC and the scientific coordination have issued recommendations for the space component of Copernicus for the future, so that we better sample the ocean and we can really increase the quality of the forecast. So their recommendations was, of course, to continue the continuity of the Sentinel missions, to also promote wide swath altimetry in the future, to fly a geostationary ocean color mission over Europe to increase the resolution of the products, to fly a microwave mission to have a high spatial resolution SST over Europe, and the continuity of the Cryosat-2 mission, the ice thickness observations, and also to promote R&D actions to observe SSS, salinity at the surface of the ocean, and ocean currents from space. So what about the synergy of European scientists with various expertise that is induced by this big service? So first, it allows us to really have a dynamic group of scientists evaluating the analysis and forecast. So we have many, there's a big work taking place here. Fabrice is going to talk about that tomorrow, so I won't get into much details. But each product is validated. We try to respect GODE Ocean View standards, and we try to produce documents for each of the products and try to update them as much as we can and produce online statistics as recent as possible. And this work is going to improve in the coming years. Another big effort, a common effort in between CMEM scientists, is the Ocean State Report. So this report is quite big. I don't know if some of you have heard about it. It's really an impressive work studying the variability and the trends in the ocean for the ocean parameters, the essential ocean variables. And it involved more than 80 people around inside CMEMS. From more than 25 European institutions. So we're going to have one each year. So there is one currently under review in Journal of Operational Oceanography. And this work is led by Carina von Schuckmann. And here you can't see because it's too small, but this is a summary of the trends. So it's not surprising. The results, of course, you've heard about that already. The results is a warming of the global ocean, of course, the sea level rise, the sea ice extent diminution in the Arctic. But the idea of this report is really to regionalize the results and to answer the needs of the European environment agencies and for indicators really closer to the people, like water quality, etc. So make the bridge in between this scientific approach and the indicators that really matter to the people. So, and also to increase the collaboration between this group and other groups doing the same thing over the world. So, of course, this group of scientists made a lot of R&D achievements, so I won't explain all of them here, because a paper just came out on the Mercator Ocean Journal that you can find online on the Mercator Ocean website. So it summarizes all the scientific achievements from the MFCs and TACs during the first 3 years of Copernicus Marine Service. So you can have a look at that paper. And really the R&D part of this Marine Service, we call it service evolution. And it's really to make the analysis of what R&D studies are needed to make the service evolve corresponding to user requirements. So we have to transform the user requirements into achievable service evolution objectives. So the users can want everything. So they can ask for some evolutions that can be contradictory. So we have to decide and transform that into changes in the systems. And of course, we have to ensure that the monitoring and forecasting capabilities are state of the art. And we want to focus on activities that are really core service that can be done at the pan-European scale, and leave the downstream activities for the national, for the business, for the national centers, etc. So the Service Evolution Group and the Scientific and Technical Advisory Committee, they have split that into different timescales for research. There's a first tier, tier one. This is research done by the centers, the production centers, inside the Copernicus service. There is tier two, which is done via service evolution calls. So these are research projects that are funded by the Copernicus Marine Service. There's a call which is open right now. And there is a long-term research which is done by the research community, for instance, in the context of the Horizon 2020 program. So this link with the downstream users is really done through the user uptake call. So this is a call for projects for downstream applications. And so, as I said, this is done by TACs and MFCs. This is really done through projects of service evolution calls. And this is long-term research from H2020 and the research community. So they have issued the STAC and the Service Evolution group have issued some high-level documents on the R&D priorities for the service. So of course they have identified issues on ocean wave, ocean ice coupling, biogeochemistry and ecosystem to be improved in the service, coastal and ocean atmosphere and climate areas of innovation and research. This is for short-term, 1 to 3 year term. And for the longer term, they have also issued a useful document. All these documents can be found online. So where you will find the subjects of research for the coming years in your domain. So I thought that was nice for you to hear about that, because it's going to be transformed into projects in the coming year. So this is the agenda of the Copernicus Marine Service implementation. So Copernicus Marine Service started in late 2014, and it's funded until 2021, and hopefully will go on after that. So there was a phase one, which ends at the beginning of next year. So currently we are waiting for the answers of the contracts for next phase. So we are currently, we have issued calls to begin the second phase for the TACs and MFCs. And there are also, as I said, calls for service evolution projects that are taking place. And there are also regularly user uptake calls. So they are not on this agenda, but I invite you to have a look at the calls that are issued regularly. So this is an example of the variety of projects that have been financed through the user evolution, through the service evolution calls. So there are projects on mixing, on coupling, on data assimilation, coupling with waves, on phytoplanktonic groups in biogeochemistry modeling. This is to assimilate sea surface temperature, and this is the project led by Simon, validation in the Mediterranean Sea. So again, some of the identified issues for long-term research, so this is really a summary of the document I talked about, is really to promote very high resolution modeling, tides, wave circulation coupling, ensemble methods for data assimilation. Of course, we want really to improve the biogeochemical products, so we want to improve the ocean wave and atmosphere coupling, and we need to improve the in situ and satellite products for the coastal management. We want to produce longer term reanalyses. And we also want to integrate new technologies for product dissemination, such as big data technology. So finally, use case and training material. So recently they have added on the website a very nice set of information on the users and the use cases. So you have a PDF file. You can choose the type of user you want to see. So if you want to see a user that's in business or in academic, or if it's a public service, you can choose what type of product they use. So if you want to see users of the global, or users of in situ, or users of satellite, you can choose the area of benefit. And the area of benefit is it a maritime resource? Is it weather forecast, etc.? And the geographical area. And you end up with a 2 pages PDF file showing you the summary of what they've done, what product they've used, and what is the benefit of using this product for their application. So this is really interesting. So I've put here 2 examples. So I chose examples in the MEDC, and here we find again our friends from SOCIB and IMEDEA. So this example is about a tool to prevent oil spills that is built by SOCIB and IMEDEA and Puerto del Estado. So PAS here makes a testimony on this on this PDF file. So you will know PAS this afternoon because she's going to supervise the tutorials too. And this other example is how they use the Copernicus Marine Service of data to perform a metocean study that is necessary to implement these offshore wind farm. This is a floating on offshore wind farm. So it's a new renewable energy source that has been tested off the French coast, Mediterranean coast. So another interesting thing is that you can submit your own use case online. If you are a user and you want to show what you've done with the products, you can perform and submit your own use case so that it's available for others. And you also have access to many training material, such as lectures from other training sessions that are already available. But I guess that the lectures that have been filmed during this session will also be available from this site. And you can, I hope that in a few weeks, you will be able also to access the training material that we're going to use this afternoon from this website. And probably more to come, such as very simple scripts to learn how to download and view the data. So we'll conclude with the general idea that this Copernicus Marine Service is really a major achievement for operational oceanography in Europe. It's a really big effort to make people work together and maintaining state-of-the-art systems, improving the offer, and developing a user base to show that it's really useful and sustainable. And of course, the R&D activities are very important, and the links with the oceanographic community is very important. So we need you. Join us. You can join. You can know more by connecting to these forums or asking the service desk. And so you have all the links here. and thank you for your attention.